line this evening. We'll see how we go. I'll start with any apologies first of all. So, Luciani, any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Anju Sharma, from Philip Theobald. I'm sure I had somebody else. And Linda Galpin.
Okay, thank you. And also we have a couple of members joining us this evening online. So I can see Katie and Claire. Lovely to see you both. Thank you for being with us this evening. And also I'd just like to introduce, is it Stephen or Steve?
Stephen Newton.
Okay, we've got Stephen Newton joining us this evening. Stephen is joining us as an observer this evening for Group D. And he'll have a discussion with Alex when we break into groups, but the decision with Group D will solely sit with Alex. Okay, so item 2 on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Luciani, do you know if they were circulated?
Yeah, they were circulated with the agenda.
Okay. I hope everyone had an opportunity to have a look at the minutes. I have one correction. My name's spelt wrong. I'm a PH, not a V. Are there any other sort of, Emily?
So it's not a correction, it's actually a matter arising. On page 7, because obviously what I did after the meeting was go through and make amendments to the syllabus based on what we've discussed at the meeting. And on page 7, it says minor amendments agreed. Number 2, that a note be added to make it clear there is not an expectation that all content will be taught. When I looked at the syllabus, it's already there. So I did not add that because it's there. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Any other, just going around the room? Shira?
Yeah, just a couple minor things. I don't even know, maybe they should just be sort of added to the minutes for this week. The wording from Ian on page 8, it was tentatively agreed. We needed to look at the links. So it was more of a tentative thing as opposed to this was absolutely agreed. Because we needed to look at the links to see whether they dealt with the issue in terms of minority stress. So that's something that we're going to need to come back to.
Can I'll come back on that point? My understanding was that was agreed at the last meeting.
It was agreed tentatively, so we needed to look. We hadn't had a chance to look at the link. So that's something that we are going to need to come back to. And the other thing was that there was no agreed wording for 4.2.4. We just started discussing it and never finished. So that's also not finished, and we'll come back to that tonight.
Okay. I don't know if Katie or Claire, if you have any other amendments. No? Okay, so my understanding was that the B section was agreed. Shira, you're saying it's possibly not. Emily, Ian, I don't know your recollection.
Sorry. I did, when I was checking the minutes, have a look at the video of the meeting to check on that. And I think it was agreed, Shira's right, that people hadn't had an opportunity to look at the links and see what it said at each link. So, yeah, it was agreed, but we hadn't looked at the detail of the links. So
it was agreed that we were going to put the links in and that was okay. That's what we said, because it was professional standards which are written by the DFE.
We're saying, thank you, it was agreed, professional standards.
I think it's up to members and the chair to decide if they want to go back on that and discuss that again. I think we did vote on the changes in Shira's document section B, and that was part of that vote and discussion. I think
Alex and I both agree that needs to be.
open vote where I ask all members in the room if they agree, and then we'll go with the majority. Is that legally bound? Because I don't want anything to come back on any sort of SACRE. I'm ensuring we're following the democratic process.
Can you propose what is being...
Sorry, Shahid, can you put the mic?
Sorry, can you please repeat what we are being asked to vote on?
So at the previous meeting, and Shira, please jump in as well because this was your amendment, I don't want to get it wrong. At the previous meeting, Shira suggested some changes within Part B of the document, and there was some wording and some conversations around safeguarding young people. So Group B and C, so the Church of England, the education group, objected to those changes around this being a curriculum document and not a safeguarding document, and a safeguarding document is very separate, and this is not that. And then Ian suggested that teachers would have, I'm just putting up the minutes, Ian suggested as a compromise there'd be reference to the teaching standards and relevant safeguarding documents, but Shira, you're saying you don't feel that is sufficient?
Had a look at the documents that were linked to, and they don't address the concern I raised. So therefore, we need to come back to it. And Alex and I were both rather exhausted, and we sort of reluctantly gave up the fight, said we'd have a look. And the documents that they're useful, but they don't quite address the issue. I don't understand why it's such a big deal. I have a proposal of compromise wording, which I think should be acceptable. And honestly, I think we shouldn't bash this to death. Let me present what my proposal is, and people can accept it or not. But the wording that Ian suggested was a tentative thing because we hadn't had a chance to look at the links. So how could we possibly really know whether they addressed the problem? And they don't.
I'll do sorry, is there any comments?
I think, Claire, are you having trouble listening to the meeting? No?
The camera's not on the Teams.
I can hear, but I can't see anything.
Katie, can you see the meeting?
It's not on.
No.
If you look at the Teams, it's not on.
There's a picture here.
Yeah.
No, but you look at the camera at the top.
Oh, the
ribbon
camera,
at the top.
that camera.
Teams meeting, just turn the camera on.
Okay, but the camera is only on this side, you're saying?
No.
No, I think wherever the Teams meeting, is it on this one? It says cameras
Yeah.
turned off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you just turn it on, it should.
Turn it on the ribbon at the top.
That should sort
There you go. Yeah. Okay, can see us all now. So in terms of ensuring that we're following a due process, are we able to just open it and then we'll go with the majority of members, or do we go into our groups, Ian and Emily?
Well, I know in the document that Shira's circulated, she's proposed wording which she would be happy with, which incorporates the links that Ian suggested, but adds some additional wording. So I guess I would suggest that we give Shira an opportunity to present that.
Okay.
Sorry, Stephen, I don't know if we want to do that now or if we want to, because my suggestion was going to be that because that might involve a bit of discussion, maybe we look at the very straightforward things that we've got remaining to be changed, discuss them, and then have have remaining time for things that might need more discussion. So there are several things in the document that Shira's circulated that are just very minor changes of wording or typos. So we could maybe talk about those first and vote on those, and then come to the safeguarding wording, perhaps.
So I've only got the document that was sent out of the agenda pack.
So the document that Luciane has printed is the latest version.
Okay.
There were some minor sort of typos and minor things that occurred to me after it had been circulated, and those are marked with track changes. It didn't seem to be necessary to recirculate again. So anything which is different from what was circulated by email is clearly marked with track changes. Then there's one more document which I sent to Emily today, which will get put up on the board, which people can have an electronic copy of it if they want. to do this, which is to do with the safeguarding issue, because it occurred to me over the weekend how to make the wording more general and better, which I think people will hopefully accept.
So Shira, where do you want to begin from in terms of an
I think we should just go in order through because it's simpler and avoid confusion. To be honest, I mean, part A, they were just some minor typos with the need fixing. So if we can, I mean, does anyone have any objection to fixing minor typos? There's some carriage returns which were there that shouldn't be there, carriage returns which weren't there. There's an extra word gods which shouldn't be there, just to fix those minor issues.
Sharon, can I just suggest that when you're making suggesting the changes, please mention the page number and the paragraph so you know exactly who can follow the document.
Yeah.
If you look at this document from Shira,
I'm looking at that.
Page 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Every item on here, I have a page number reference which ought to be the same correct page of this version of the syllabus. So, so everything has a reference to the item number and the page number. It's all there. Should be really easy to follow.
Do we need to go into groups to I mean, I don't think we do, but I want to ensure process is followed, so we're all happy with the syllabus. Emily, Ian, do we need to go into groups? We do need to go into groups. Okay.
If it's accepting the comments on page 2, then they are accepted by each individual group as a majority vote within each group. So it will be like we did last time. Group A will get together B, C and D, and then we'd say, are you happy to accept those amendments? And then they become part of, if the conference of committees agree to it, all four, then that would stand as an amendment and a change to be made to the final document of the agreed syllabus.
Well,
No, it has to be done properly. We have to follow
Stephen,
process.
sorry, could I just
Emily.
clarify something with Shira, because I was just going through this before the meeting. A5, just
Yeah.
that carriage return that's
Yeah.
missing, I think somehow some of your page references, Shira, are not quite the same as the syllabus. So on page 65 near the top, I think, because the Judaism content is now on page 67. So could you just clarify where you wanted the...
This was the document that you sent me, so I was trying.
I know. I just want to be
so
clear
we're
where
talking
you want
about,
it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. Oh no, that's been fixed. I mean, I think the problem was when you accept changes, the carriage return disappears.
Okay, but that's okay now, as
Well,
it appears
I
here.
can't see because this here is showing the track changes. When you accept changes, the carriage return will disappear.
Okay, well, you can check it when...
So just you know, so if you view it with all changes accepted, the carriage return disappears. So it's a, you know, just gotta make sure that there's carriage return at the end of the line, otherwise it's confusing.
So should we break into our groups? I think I don't want to speak for anyone. They seem like quite minor amendments, a couple of minutes, then we'll come back together and vote.
Jenny, do you need to come here?
I think,
I'm part of Group A, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, if you just look at your day,
Come here with Group A,
come sit here.
back on the ground.
Yeah, fine.
We'll see if we can call Claire.
Oh yeah, we need credit number.
Luciani,
Although,
Hi everyone. I think we're good to come to the vote for those changes to A. So Group A, do you accept those changes?
Yes.
Thank you. Group B?
Yes.
Group C?
Yes.
Yeah, we accept those changes. And Group D?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And also the minor changes to
No.
B1A, we're also fine with at the same time. Getting rid of the word, the extra word any.
We haven't,
Okay.
so because we're doing it section by section. Emily?
Stephen, could I make a suggestion that what we could do next is, because they're all quick things, we could look at section B of Shearer's document and also section C and section G, because they're all to do with sort of typos, very minor wording, and I think it could be quite efficient to look at those three sections together.
Except for B1B, which is the one thing that needs discussing.
Yeah, that's what I think we should leave B. Sorry, just B1, sorry, on page 2, B1A, C and G, because they're all very minor typo type things. And then we could come back to the safeguarding section on page 3.
I'm not sure that G1 is necessarily a simple...
Yeah,
It's more a philosophical matter.
true. So, I mean, it might be, if you'd prefer to take each section separately, that's fine. But
We leave G on its own.
Okay, so the next section then to discuss within our groups is B. So Shira, I don't know if there's any comments you would like to make around B before... So, yeah, you've got B1A, B1B, and B2. I don't know if there's any comments you'd like to make, and then we can have a discussion, then go into our groups and vote.
Okay, so B1A and B2A, B2B, those are all just minor, just. Oh, there's nothing to do with B2. That was all done. So there's just a minor. The extra word "any" should be struck from the sentence. Must not be designed to promote any religion or worldview. There's just an extra word "any." It's just a typo to fix. So, to be honest, this is a typo.
Okay, and then do you want to just go through B1B? Because I think we just do all of B together.
So this whole issue regarding minority rights, I think let's bring up my the page 3 of the document, and the document I sent you earlier today will support, which is a sort of extra bit of information. If you bring up page 3 of the document I sent. So now I understand that at the ASC in April, I suggested the wording, which was basically pretty much based on what Anne Andrews had put together, with the additional line that no child must be told that their religious belief or disbelief requires justification. Now, the reason that this was proposed, if you remember, had to do with safeguarding concerns related to activities in the syllabus where students may actually be debating which religious beliefs are correct, which unfortunately is a problem, because this is becoming a theme that is coming back into RE with the worldviews framework, with critical RE. Now, which I can go into a bit more in a bit, but there was an objection from Group B and from Group C. Now, the objection from Group C from Katie, sorry, from Group B from Katie, was that there was a concern that if you can never challenge that you might feel you couldn't challenge anyone's belief, which is actually not what I had intended, because obviously you have to do everything within the framework of British values, and if somebody makes a statement like everyone should have the same religion as me or else they should be shot, then obviously that's something that can be challenged. And so the objection from Group C was that they were offended at the idea that teachers might not already understand that children shouldn't be pressurized to agree with their peers. That there was somehow I was impugning the integrity of teachers by suggesting this, which actually wasn't what I was intending. But now, Ian's suggestion was to link this with British values. I actually think is a really good one, take on board, because then that addresses Katie's concern about, because any opinion that a child has, obviously, we all have to agree with certain British values, or we can't do RE at all. RE is based on the premise that we all respect each other and that none of us are trying to push our religion on each other. Otherwise, we can't do RE. So taking that on board, but there was something that was missing, because you need to understand the context of this and where the problem came from. And that was the fact that in the original draft of the syllabus, the one that we saw last June, there were activities in the syllabus. If you can bring up the document I sent you this afternoon. There were activities in the syllabus that were asking children to, for year 6, list different beliefs people have about what happens after you die and rank them by how likely they are. And I remember looking at this, and there were a number of other similar activities. Also in the guidance at the back of the syllabus, teachers were being told that the training for children was that they should be learning how to justify their beliefs. And that was actually written in to the, what's it called, disciplinary knowledge, disciplinary skills, was the ability to justify your beliefs. And it seemed to me that the people who put that syllabus together didn't quite twig the fact that if you come from a minority background, which could be religious or non-religious, that being asked to justify your beliefs could be viewed as abusive. And I was very concerned by this. I spoke to Trevor Cooling about this particular problem, because he's the architect of the worldviews framework, and he suggested to me that there should be safeguarding guidance put into the syllabus so that if there are any truth-seeking activities in the syllabus, that those would be done within the framework of those safeguarding concerns for children from minority backgrounds. So the wording that I've come up with, which you want to scroll to the bottom of that document, Emily? The wording that I've come up with, just scroll to the bottom, yeah, which incorporates Ian's suggestion, is as follows. And that is that authors have been mindful of the very different contexts in which RE is taught across Berkshire. Curriculum, time, resources, and teacher expertise differ considerably from one school to another. They're also mindful that everybody has a responsibility to promote the welfare of all children and young people. That's all already there. This is the bit. And that children from minority religious or non-religious backgrounds may find themselves under ideological pressure to justify their differences from others. To safeguard such pupils while delivering religious education, all teachers should have due regard to, and then you've got all this stuff to do with British values that Ian suggested. So it's incorporating the suggestion from Ian, but emphasizing that the reason why we are concerned about this is because of ideological pressure. And I'm not claiming that teachers might put children under ideological pressure. We're talking about, I don't see how anybody who's at all aware of anything going on in the news or what's going on at universities, the self-censorship of people who hold beliefs that aren't shared by their peers, the fear that people may have about disagreeing with their peers, that this is a problem, this is an issue, and it is brought up by the reintroduction of critical RE into RE. Now, most of the critical RE got taken out of the syllabus, but only because I raised a horrible fuss. And if I hadn't raised the fuss, if the other Jewish reps and Hindu reps hadn't raised a fuss, the critical RE would still be in the syllabus. One of the authors of our syllabus is currently director of NATRE. We don't know what training is being done for teachers, encouraging them. I could provide you links to documents from some of the main architects of worldviews who are arguing for the use of critical RE to develop the personal worldview of the child and bringing back truth-seeking and treating religious beliefs as being competing views for which they should be debate, which I just think is completely inappropriate. And you could debate whether that belongs in RE, but if there's even any risk, any chance that those activities might be coming in because of what teachers are learning from their workshops from NATRE, which is being run by the person who wrote the activities that we had removed, there's real reason to be concerned.
Sorry to cut, can we just keep it to the syllabus, please? I don't think it's appropriate to sort of talk about
We need
NATRE
to be
and the advisor.
concerned about the idea that we should not be worried.
But we need to remain professional, and we're talking about our syllabus, not other people.
I understand.
So let's keep it professional, please.
We keep things professional, and teachers need to be warned about the risks of children from minority, religious, non-religious backgrounds who may have found themselves under ideological pressure. And that's all I wanted to be added in, and I don't understand what the fuss is all about.
I think you seem to have forgotten what we are here to do. We are here writing a syllabus. We are not here reviewing the way that teachers are trained. We are not here to criticise different professional bodies. We are here to write a syllabus. We are putting in information or guidance which, even when you sit down and go through GCSE or A-level syllabus that comes out that we have to deliver, for instance, to the students, that is checked and counter-checked by the DFE, has nothing like this in it because it is a subject syllabus. So if something that is approved by the government, the Department for Education, why are we proposing to put something in which is theoretical about the way teachers should be trained, about what professional bodies are doing? We are using information that is reflecting your own personal views, calling people abusive or policies put forward by different professional bodies, which I don't concern myself with. I concern myself with what am I teaching the students. I have to follow the teaching guidance that is there, the teaching standards. There are safeguardings about things that I can and cannot do, and I cannot put pressure on a student to justify his or her religion to me. That is not allowed according to the teaching standard. That is not allowed by safeguarding teachers in each school. And if any parent experiences that, they have the automatic legal right to go to the head teacher and report me, and I'll probably get sacked. So why are we putting this in, which, to be quite frankly, you use the term abusive about other people. I feel insulted as a teacher of nearly 40 years, that you're saying this is what you've got to do to make sure I do it. I do that every single day of my working life. And you are looking down and saying, oh, but we don't trust you, we're going to put this in. That's where we're coming from. That's why we feel quite strongly about it.
I'm sorry, but that's just not at all what this says at all. Like, I think you're taking this far too personally. I think this is a much more watered down version of what we actually wanted to say in here anyway. And the two links to the documents don't actually address the specific issue that Shira has raised, which is the issue of people from minority religious or non-religious backgrounds feeling that they are under ideological pressure to justify their differences from others. None of what is written there suggests that teachers are doing anything wrong. It just points out an issue that can arise in religious education lessons, which doesn't happen in other lessons. This is a specific issue to religious education lessons, and it's a specific issue that is not covered in those two links. It's just saying that there ought to be an awareness about this particular issue, which does not take place in other lessons.
But it's not in any other curriculum document, as Sarah said, that comes down from DFE, and I've looked at Hampshire's locally agreed syllabus, Surrey, Bucks, other local ones. Nobody has any statement like this. And if we're going to go down that line, I'm just thinking at GCSE level, we teach sexual ethics at A level, and I said the previous day, should we not start having comments in here then around children who identify in the LGBT plus community and have comments around that? It doesn't fit, in my mind, in a curriculum document. This document is for teachers to go away, put their framework together, and then plan and teach the young people in front of them. For me, it just doesn't.
I wouldn't oppose.
Sam.
I wouldn't oppose having that
Sam.
in a syllabus.
Oh, sorry, I'm pressing it. This might be a tiny minor point, but we're talking here about children from minority faith communities. You yourself talked last time about being under ideological pressure, but that wasn't from a minority faith community, because yours was from the Christian one that you were saying as well, weren't you?
It was
So
a
I'm not
minority
sure.
in my case because
Yeah,
I
but
was
that's
in the
minority in your
Muslim
case, but
atheist.
not from minority.
But this is exactly why we need to have this in the syllabus,
Yeah, but
because of
that's really-
these kinds of
Sorry,
misunderstandings.
That's why I changed the wording. That's why I changed. That's why I thought over the weekend and came up with the change wording you got up there, which is different from what was emailed out, which is say minority religious or non-religious backgrounds, which is much more. In other words, that teachers should be aware that when they are having these discussions over who's right and which belief is correct, which unfortunately is happening in RE, and is happening in some of the suggested activities, some suggested lessons which are being put out by various bodies, that they should be careful to make sure that children are not placed under ideological pressure to agree with the majority.
Well, in which case you're talking about, as Stephen said, we need to go through talking about sexual ethics. We need to talk about all the other ethical issues about every single thing, because that comes up every day.
That's absolutely fine. If you want to include that in the other syllabus, that's fine. I'm not on a sanctioned committee for PSHME, but if I was, I probably would agree with having a similar phrase in there as well. I don't understand why there's an issue with this. It's just like it's just a sentence in a document.
Because it's a dangerous precedent. This is a curriculum document. This is not a document about teachers. This comment here, for example, to safeguard such pupils, teachers should have due regard. That's insulting as a professional. As a teacher, I have due regard for safeguarding as a professional. I have due regard for my teaching standards and SMSC and the well-being of every single young person I teach. This is a curriculum document, not a safeguarding document, not a document around what I should be doing in terms of my standards.
So this document should only contain content.
That is what a syllabus is, in essence. And if you look at all the GCSE syllabus, and as said, and all of our neighbours, all of their syllabuses are content documents. I think we need some advice from sort of our advisor. How we move forward with this one, because we haven't voted.
Yeah, within the other national curriculum documents, you would not get guidance on safeguarding, because safeguarding would relate, therefore, to the two documents that I included there. So, for example, bullet point 4 under section 2 of the teacher standards, which said to show tolerance and understanding of all religions, belief systems and faiths, is there. So within the national curriculum, the guidance for teaching around pedagogy would come through how teachers decide to do it. A national curriculum document, which is basically what an agreed syllabus is basically here is the content that you as an agreed syllabus conference have decided that you want to be taught to schools in your area. So for example, in the same way, for example, with, I'll use music, which might sound a strange example, but I used to learn music in my school. There will be a section which is probably 12 lines long, which is all Key Stage 3 music. And then a school is free to decide how they teach it, and they are also then free, and they range their curriculum around the content. An agreed syllabus is the group are agreeing what content will be taught in relation to religion and non-religious worldviews within the Wokingham area. So it's a framework for a curriculum development rather than the pedagogical document. Pedagogical document, Sarah said this one, pedagogy, as I said this last time, I trained, not as long ago as Sarah, but we had that discussion last time. So I have my own view of what pedagogy in RE is. Sarah will have one, Stephen will have one, other colleagues from schools around the area will have one. Another example was when I trained to teach primary, and I'm a primary trained teacher, I did not learn to do phonics to teach reading, I learnt big books. So at the time, that was the view that came forward. There will be different views, and Shira has said, that worldviews is an approach that is out there at the moment. There are other approaches as well, and teachers are looking for, from Agreed Syllabus, what content must I cover for these children? And then Nick Gibbs said it in 2016, and I did mention this last time, that how schools teach is the biggest responsibility an SLT actually have. So in my own school, I was deputy head curriculum and then acting head teacher. The deputy head teacher in learning set the agenda with the head teacher for how we deliver the curriculum. I worked on what we delivered, and therefore as an RE teacher, I would use my Agreed Syllabus document to say, this is how we're delivering it. So at the moment in schools, and it shows you a while, Rose and Shine has been huge for the past few years as a teaching methodology. Prior to that, we had other methodologies. One methodology coming forward now at the moment is EFA, Embedded Informative Assessment. So different approaches will come in, and schools will take those on board because that is their responsibility. The aim of an Agreed Syllabus is to say, here is the content that we want you to teach to our children in Wokingham, because we don't have a national curriculum document. So you are deciding the content of what is taught. And actually, I'll go to Samantha's comment as well, and Emily had had that discussion. In terms of that one, I would just, the idea is when we talk about a minority, I would say, teachers in point 4, or bullet point 4 of standard 2, should have due regard to all religions, not just the minority faith. And that's what the teaching standards are there. And I will be quite happy to explain this, that as an acting head teacher for a number of months, where a teacher did go against the teaching standards, they are then disciplined. So they can actually lose their jobs. So if a teacher said a teacher has made a comment, they will be suspended by SLT in school, because that is our safeguarding responsibility if we know that. But we as SLT, and John will know this as well, we take on board that responsibility as SLT in the light of all the documents that come from DFE, because we have to ensure as SLT in school that we are following the law. And that's what I think that's where the discussions here are coming from, that the law states that we do not put ideological pressure on people, and that is within those documents. Within the RSHE document, which Stephen mentioned earlier, which is the relationship, sex and health education, it simply says have due regard to the law, and it should say, all schools teach about faith perspectives on these topics. However, there should be a balanced debate. That's all it says. There's no other guidance on the fact that it should be a balanced debate. So actually, the national curriculum does not, by its very nature, tell people how to teach. It tells people what to teach. And an Agreed Syllabus is actually the same thing. It's the agreed content of a religious education framework that you want children to know about the faith communities that you have chosen to be studied. Hopefully that helps you.
Thank you. Alex?
The whole first 7.5 pages of this document are not content. All of this stuff is not content. So again, it talks about, I'm sort of scanning through it talks about teaching and learning approach, it talks about how to use this syllabus, it talks about time allocation, and it talks about the purpose of religious education. None of this stuff is content. This is all, introductory stuff that teachers can read through to, get their head in the right space when they're putting together their lesson plans, right? I assume. And so why is the sentence that Shira's put up on the screen there any different to the kinds of comments that are in these first 7.5 pages?
Because there's a fundamental difference between that. So there's this standard in a normal curriculum document. You would get something like this telling you a bit about it, a bit of a preamble and the reason why. I think what I'm saying, I'm a teacher, Group C, I'm an educationist, as a professionalist, you guys are all coming from Group A. I respect your judgment as our different reps, our C of E reps, our counsellor. We're the professionals on Group C. We're advising you and telling you this is not what you would have in a curriculum document. In a curriculum document, you would have your preamble, you'd have a bit about how maybe it links to things, and then you go into the content. So as professionals and experts in this area, this is what we're telling you would normally see.
Can I ask you a question, Stephen? Are you telling me that you will always be aware whenever students are putting each other under pressure to agree in a classroom? Say there's a debate over whether God exists, and everyone in the room is all fundamentalist Christian, there's one atheist, and maybe the teacher is also a religious person and has never had the experience of being an atheist in a room where everyone else is religious. So they will just not be aware that that's even a problem, because it's not a matter that they're deliberately seeking to, we're talking here not about teachers being malicious. We're talking about the fact that, frankly, a lot of people who haven't been in that position don't know what it's like when suddenly there's some argument. I just don't think that RE should be about truth-seeking, but it's coming into RE. It is coming back into RE, and it's dangerous territory, and you have to, when you're entering that territory, if you're going to enter that territory, that teachers be warned, be aware, students you have a duty of care to make sure that children don't feel pressurized by each other. Are you telling me that you'll always be aware when that sort of thing is happening, that you've never missed that sort of thing, that teachers don't need any kind of reminder, this is a problem which you might not be aware of? Why is it so offensive to remind a teacher of a potential issue that can come up because of the way students treat each other?
Because I get that every year from my safeguard leads, and they will update me regularly on things to be looking out for. And as a professional, I will have due regard for my teaching standards, as will my colleagues, which tell us exactly how we should be behaving. And every year, with some of the schools I've worked in, as a part of our performance management, we will look at the teacher standards and we will assess ourselves against those. Julie.
I think I was going to say something similar. I am safeguarding lead in school, and we have full safeguarding training every September. We have about 6 different online training courses to do across the year. I've got 2 more to do this half term. They address all these different issues. If you've not noticed an issue in your class, whether it's written in this document or not, it's not going to make you notice it at the time. You are already aware to look out for these things, because it comes under all your safeguarding training.
So how come none of you noticed these critical RE activities, and how come I had to be the one to raise the alarm when those were put into our syllabus? Why didn't you guys cry foul about this idea of ranking beliefs for which we're more likely? Why did I have to raise the alarm?
Firstly, I don't think making it personal was helpful. And then secondly, as professionals, I'm not so sure we would have used things like that. We would have used our appropriate judgment and taught the children in our classes in an appropriate way. I mean, please jump in, sort of teaching colleagues, like...
Friday, I had a Year 8 student having a discussion with another Year 8 student about why it was or wasn't appropriate to consider having a picture of the Twin Towers tragedy on the front of his book. He didn't have it on the front, but he was talking about that. I had to navigate that. Having that written there in no way prepares me for the classroom, because as an RE teacher, I know I have to navigate the potential, whatever you like to call it, pitfalls of any discussions that could come up at any time. It's reinforcing respect, tolerance, consideration of others. Whatever is said, whether it be about somebody's view or somebody's religious view. And that doesn't, this is a curriculum document. If you want to write a separate document about guidance about how to deliver it, then do a separate document. But this is not what you get from the national curriculum. I teach history as well, in many other things, okay? And you don't get that. You get just, this is the subject, this is the topic, this is what you've got to do, this is the order, these are the key questions. You gone away from what this document is all about. And yes, I appreciate there are things in here like how many hours you should do and things like that. I had to sit down today, and in fact on Friday, with a member of my SLT. I was just talking with Ian about it, because the guidance here is that at Key Stage 3 there should be 45 hours. And I was sitting there to an assistant head teacher who said, well, I thought it was 30. I'm going, no, it isn't. You are under. Oh, what are we going to do? Oh, and now that. They weren't talking about what is the philosophy behind the way that you teach it. They were talking about the nuts and bolts. And this, as an RE teacher, sitting down to create a curriculum as a subject leader, is the nuts and bolts that I need to know. What do I have to teach? When do I have to teach it? How much? The philosophy behind it is for others. I know what I should be considering with each and every student in my classroom is to value their views, their beliefs, whether they are religious or non-religious, individually, and show respect to them and get others to do that. And so I challenge those who are disrespectful to whoever, whether it be to me or to them. I always say to the students, my view's no more important to you than yours. Okay, we just might sometimes agree to disagree. And that is where I come from a teaching point of view. I don't need somebody to imply that otherwise I wouldn't do it unless it was in here. This is a curriculum document. You have gone off the point. You are not recognising what the foundation of this document is all about. That's where I think we're coming from.
Sorry, just also to add, there are minority groups that are affected in other subjects as well. So, for example, history, you would be careful about groups. We have a large minority of Gypsy Roma traveller in our school, so we're very mindful of those. So this is a very small example, but in my foundation stage classroom, I had photographs of the roads that everyone came to school in and the areas. And I went to that community and said, I really want a photo of where they come from in my room so they feel like they belong. And they, what photo are you happy for me to put up? And they told me what they would be happy, and that's what went up. And all the children in that class will now pick up that display and say, oh, I live there, that's my house, that's how I come to school. But I was very mindful about that minority group in that setting. So, that was on geography. So there's history, there's geography, there's RE, there's literature texts. We deliberately choose texts that support those minority groups in our school. And that's all subjects, which is why it's a safeguarding thing, not just an RE thing.
Should we go into our groups and vote unless anybody else has any other comments? No? Okay, so if we go into our go into our groups and vote on the proposed changes.
just a thought about how we vote, Stephen. Do you want to vote on 1A first? And then...
Group A ready? Yep. So Group A, do you? Sorry. Just for ease of minutes and to speed things up a little bit, I thought we'd take it. So we'd just do the B1A. So do you agree to those changes?
Yes.
Group B. So just B1A.
B1A, yes.
Group C. We agree to B1A. Group D.
Oh, yeah, I do, yeah.
Okay. B1B. Group A.
We're happy not to have this change made.
Because you don't want it.
I just don't think that was particularly helpful, that comment. There's no need to sort of point and...
We'll abstain.
No, we've agreed that... No, so we have agreed that we will accept it without the change being made.
So sorry, just to be really clear for the syllabus purposes, because we were having a conversation, are we accepting the comments that was made last meeting?
Yes.
So Ian's suggestions?
Ian's suggestions, yes, but we don't require the text in purple to be in there.
Okay, Group B?
We said that we were happy with the wording that was agreed last time and thought that the wording in purple went beyond the remit of the syllabus, and it is now a place to put in things like this, and perhaps if there are further difficulties or complaints, perhaps the DFE might be the place to go with that.
Thank you. Group C, I don't mind sort of saying. So we didn't agree with the new wording, but we were happy to have the wording that we agreed at the last meeting with the blue bit that Ian suggested. Group D?
Yeah, in the sake of it being easy, I'll just agree with what everyone else has said.
I think you just need to be really clear because we just want to ensure the process
I
is...
will approve the wording that we used in the previous meeting.
Okay, thank you. And then Ian, Emily and myself just had a very quick conversation. I don't know if you want to share what you suggested, Ian, with everyone.
Yeah, one of the things that Emily and I, when we met last week, is we'll be having next year 3 primary networks, and we'll be having a secondary RE conference where we're going to invite all, free of charge, and let's face it, but we are because it's already paid for, free of charge, all the secondary RE teachers in Woking, and we can put on their discussions and good practice around how we deal with supporting faith communities and what children speak. So actually, one of the things we've looked at is, we call it handling a difficult discussion, which is often very useful for other teachers. So we would ensure, Emily and myself, through the support we give the teachers in Wokingham, that actually we include some support and guidance for them around those areas in dealing with how we can handle sensitive issues and ensure that all children are treated equally in light of Equalities Act, in light of and the Keeping Children Safe in Education 2025, when we get that over the summer, which is our Bible for safeguarding, probably not the right word, Bible, but never mind, is our guidance for safeguarding, but also in light of the teacher standards as well. So we'll ensure that that's part of the support that Wokingham LA are offering to their teachers through our networks and our secondary RE conference next year.
Shahid.
Is it possible, when the training is being given to the teachers, any our secretary members can be observers in that? So, yeah.
We always invite SACRO members to come to all our networks and training, Shahid, so yeah.
I think that would be helpful because some of the concerns which are being raised here, they can directly observe them. I said as an observer, obviously, just to see, and I think that will be helpful.
And I think the point where you made about observer is very important because we are not here to judge what our teachers are doing. Our statutory duty for this is to produce a curriculum document, not to make judgments on teaching. There's other avenues for that. Emily, I think we agreed them at the last meeting and Shira's made those changes, so we don't need to, okay. So going to C, I think again they're quite minor changes, but Shira, I don't know if there's anything you want to add. So C1 and C2.
We discussed the C2 with Shahid, and he's happy with it. Yeah.
I just want to make sure, because actually I haven't got that C2 content with me. Where is it? No, that's what it says. So can you please just...
It's on page 25,
25,
just to explain, the reason why it's in capitals is because what we were going to add in there was for the suggestion that teachers explain to pupils the meaning of peace be upon him. And because I'm not an RE teacher, I was going to defer to Ian and say, can Ian please give me some wording to put in there? So that's why it's in capitals, because there's some wording in my mind to be added to explain what the meaning is of peace be upon him.
Absolutely. I think in every document I would have thought, right, if you have acronyms, that you'll explain what they stand for. So I was seeing that these acronyms are there, but actually there's no explanation there, but which surely should be there. Otherwise, you know, most of the people, even children in some cases, may not know as well. So are we saying that it's going to be those detailed description will be added?
So are we suggesting that Ian adds some, that we are authorising Ian to make a minor adjustment to the syllabus after we're done tonight, to put that in appropriately at that place, and we can sort of agree the syllabus because that's non-statutory content anyway. Is that correct? So we can, so we don't have to worry. We don't have to we don't have to sort of split hairs about that. We just know that Ian will fix it because obviously it can't stay the way it is.
And Shahid, could maybe you work with Ian on that as well as our sort of representative, just so the wording is sort of acceptable to the community?
Yes, happy to do that.
Okay, so in terms of C, again, just, I mean, it was done, there was typo, just checking. We don't need to vote on that, Emily, I'm assuming, because we agreed that the last sentence was just a typo, or do we need, I just want to ensure that it's all appropriate and...
I think we should just very quickly vote on taking out that comma, C1, and leaving it to Ian and Shahid to come up with some wording to explain peace be upon him.
Okay, so vote.
She's laughing, so I'm guessing yes.
Group A, that changes to C1 and C2.
Agreed.
Group B, yep, that's agreed. Group C, we agree. Thank you. Group D.
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, D. Shira, how do you want to do this? Do you want to sort of go through?
I think I'll just summarise where we were, because we were in the middle of D last time when we sort of gave up out of exhaustion. So I think we all reached a consensus that there was a problem with the fact, but certainly, definitely was a problem with Hinduism, that you could only have Hinduism Key Stage 1, and that Judaism should also be recommended in Upper Key Stage 2 in order that those religions don't get taught only in Key Stage 1 and then never come back to again, because Islam, Christianity, humanism, and Buddhism are all covered in Key Stage 3, and Islam is covered in Lower Key Stage 2. And we flagged the fact that we need to look into the next version of the syllabus, getting some Sikhi into Key Stage 3. To be honest, that's something that I think that should be worked on sooner rather than later, because I went to a school just last week, part of the Life of a Chickpea, one of these events, it's an interfaith event, and I spoke to the teachers, I'm trying to remember, the South Lake, and they agreed that it was not acceptable for schools to cover Judaism only in Key Stage 1, and that there should be a spiral where you cover a religion and then you come back and do it a second time at some point. But I think we had a reasonable consensus that there'd been an issue, and that the choice of what religions were covered hadn't been really thought through well enough. And Ian had actually put up on the board a sort of revised table with the suggestions that I'd made to have it that they're recommending that Judaism and Sikhi are covered, sorry, Judaism and Hindu Dharma are covered in Upper Key Stage 2, and then possibly along with Sikhi, Buddhism, Islam, and humanism as more being optional, because Sikhi being covered in Lower Key Stage 2, and Islam, Buddhism, and humanism being covered in Key Stage 3, to make a balanced curriculum. But then we got bogged down in words. Is Katie there? Yes, good. Now, Katie in particular had some issues with the way that I was rewording a couple of the paragraphs to accommodate this change. And so what I've got, if you look on page 6, I've got my original proposal, Katie's proposal that she that would have been in the pack, yeah.
Sorry, could I just clarify? Katie contacted me earlier today, just to clarify where it
I
says
was just
new
about to
document
say, Emma,
proposal by Katie. That's actually wording that Ian came up with, and I contributed to. And Katie has said she accepts it.
Oh, I
but
see.
It wasn't written by
Okay,
Katie.
okay,
just to
okay,
clarify.
all right. Well, okay. So now. So you probably had a chance to sort of to look at that. Now, I've proposed a sort of a compromise which incorporates, I think, some of the good points that were made by Ian/Emily/Katie. But there are a number of issues that I think weren't addressed. The first thing was the following, that there was an objection, I think it came primarily from Group C, to my proposal that that teachers be reminded that just using wisdom from a religion to teach philosophy doesn't constitute teaching that religion as a lived tradition. And I don't quite understand what the objection was to that, because just using wisdom from a religion to inform philosophy does not constitute teaching that religion as a lived tradition. And the reason why that needed to be in there was because teachers might think, oh, there's some Judaism ideas in Key Stage 3 philosophy, therefore it doesn't matter if I teach Judaism or not in Upper Key Stage 2, because we will be teaching Judaism in Key Stage 3, making it clear that Judaism and Hinduism and Sikhi are not actually being taught in Key Stage 3. They're just having some ideas to inform philosophy. So I don't know what the objection was to that. I don't quite understand it. If you understand that religions aren't just collections of views, but I've slightly revised that to say teachers also know that using wisdom from a religion to inform philosophy or big questions topics does not constitute teaching that religion as a lived tradition. And the reason why you need to remind teachers about that is because when they're making decisions about what religions to cover, they shouldn't think that religions such as Judaism are being covered in Key Stage 3, because they really aren't. It doesn't count. Just bringing in a few ideas about social justice from Jewish point of view does not constitute teaching Judaism. So that was the first point, which is why there's the purple at the bottom. If you go on page 7, that's why I've added that line back in. The second point was that this issue about thematic study, I think there's a bit of confusion. There was a reason why the original syllabus spoke about thematic study in Upper Key Stage 2 and didn't talk about thematic study for all the key stages, and that's because the thematic study was in Upper Key Stage 2. And we had discussions over whether things should be thematic all the way through, whether the key questions should be the same for all religions in all key stages. And we ended up adopting a compromise where in Key Stage 1 and Lower Key Stage 2, the key questions were somewhat parallel, but not entirely. There's a place of worship question for all the religions in Key Stage 1. But it's in Upper Key Stage 2 where there was this really proper thematic where you had parallel questions across all religions. And that's why the syllabus was worded that way. So I'm saying we should put this, that doesn't need changing, because it was there was a reason why it was worded that way. And maybe people coming into things more so recently didn't realize that that's the way it was organized and that was deliberate. So that's a second point, which is why the sort of the green text I've put back in. If you look on, have you not got color? You didn't get green. No. Oh, I got green on mine. Sorry. My printout comes out in green.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a bit. Oh, it looks a bit lighter.
It's slightly.
It looks a bit lighter. That was meant to be green. Sorry. I tried to do color coding to make things simple. Yes. In upper key stage 2, the syllabus designs the topics can be approached more thematically. There are similar theme questions across religions, so schools can choose to look at the same topic in 2 different religions, or either in the same unit or in consecutive units across the year. That's the original wording of the syllabus. There's a reason why it was put that way. Let's not change it, because it was that is how the syllabus was designed, and we can't be changing everything. There's only so much you can change in one. Otherwise we'll be here till 2 in the morning. So yeah. So the other thing, yeah. So that's those 2 points. Two bullet points. So that's why I propose the sort of compromise wording, which brings in the key sort of some of the new wording which was suggested, which is the stuff in red, but bringing back in some of the original wording from the syllabus. But I do want to understand from Group C why they were so upset about teachers being reminded that just using ideas from a religion to inform philosophy doesn't mean you're teaching that religion. I know some of the Group C were very upset about that line, and I don't really understand why. So I'd like to understand why Group C found that so objectionable.
That's also a little bit emotive, because actually it was only me that made a comment around sort of those, and it was right at the end, so I don't think it's appropriate to upset everyone.
All right. What was your objection?
Upset, can I finish, please? Upset also is quite emotive. I think my objection around it is it ties my hands as a teacher. So you're saying teachers should also know using wisdom from religion or big questions doesn't constitute, well actually I know that doesn't constitute teaching a religion. So if I teach a topic around environment, I don't need it here telling me that that doesn't constitute a religion. I understand that as a professional and as a teacher.
You do need to be told that, because unfortunately teachers are being told that religions are worldviews over and over and over again. And because teachers who aren't subject specialists in RE are being told that religions are worldviews, which is not correct, they need to be reminded that just bringing the religious ideas into philosophy doesn't mean you're teaching the religion. This is not there to teach you. You do not need to be told this, but some other teachers who are less knowledgeable about RE need to be reminded this. This is not meaning to, this line is not for you. It's for the teachers that know less than you do.
And I appreciate that, and I'm really privileged. Previously, I've worked with all the heads of RS across Wokingham when I worked in Wokingham schools. And this is specifically at Key Stage 3 teachers, and I know all of those heads of department, when they have non-specialists coming in, please jump in, Sarah, because if it happens, they will sit down with that non-specialist and they will go through what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do. But John, sorry, you had a question.
Sorry, I just also wanted to say that I was a bit concerned with the teachers should also note line, that we were straying out of our remit, and that this was talking about the way that the syllabus was implemented rather than the actual content. And also where it said teachers should note that using wisdom from religion to inform philosophy, obviously the senior leadership team are still teachers, but I'm not sure even decisions like this would be on the classroom teacher to make. It would be the people, we've sort of heard roles described as the people that design the curriculum and the people that decide the way it's implemented. It's on that sort of a level, so it didn't quite make sense either to me.
So to avoid getting bogged down in disagreements over nitpicking over small numbers of words, would you accept my suggested compromise with that last sentence taken out?
I think we need to discuss in our groups, but I think so. She was saying the last sentence taken out, would we agree? But I think we need to go into our groups because John, we need to have a discussion with Katie.
Oh, the other thing was that, after having sent this out, I realized that there had been a change to the beginning of this paragraph, and it's much better to just say questions may become, the proposal I want to make tonight, I'm going to get rid of that last sentence because I just don't want to get an argument about something, which, so the proposal I'm going to make right now, which is that this paragraph should say questions may be combined to create longer units that enable pupils to go deeper. There is no expectation that every question will be afforded the same amount of time, and the rest of this paragraph as I have given it, but with the last sentence cut. Because I actually do think that the original wording was better. So that's what I'd like us to vote on.
And Shira, did you just want to go through D2 4.1?
Does that make sense? What I've just proposed?
When we're going to
right.
just the rest of D.
The next. Okay, right. So, okay. So there was a proposal. Was that again Ian and Emily and sort of working with Katie? Okay. So, right. So the proposal of the sort of change proposal that you put in there. I like the fact that you're placing the pedagogical strategy first and then discussing the choice of religions. Reordering things that way is good. It makes it easier to understand. So I've kept that. It's good to make a clear distinction between requiring and recommending. But I think I could make that clearer. So my recommended compromise says the syllabus requires that Christianity is be taught in both year 5. The syllabus recommends that Judaism be taught in either year 5, year 6, or Hindu Dharma in the other. So making that distinction between recommend and require, that there was a ambiguity in the syllabus, which is good to clarify. The problem is that this paragraph just leaves out the fact that the syllabus is recommending that Judaism and Hinduism are covered in application stage 2, which I thought was the whole point of what we were agreeing here. So it just doesn't seem to make sense that that's been left out when that's the whole point is you're rewording the paragraph to accommodate the fact that we're making that change. And also there's just confused terminology about religions and worldviews. So just to use the term religion and worldview rather than what did it have? Religions and non-religious worldviews. I'm suggesting sort of consistent language through the syllabus where we talk about religions and worldviews, because the phrase religions and worldviews includes non-religious worldviews, religions, just for the sake of terminological consistency, given so that's that point. And the other thing is that you're missing out, again, the themed questions in application stage 2, that's which allows you to provide progression of a particular concept across religions and worldviews. That was the design of the original syllabus, encouraging students to make connections and discover parallels. And so I really think that language should be reinstated, because that's the whole point, is that teachers are being told how to use the syllabus. And so you're being told in application stage 2, there are these questions which cut across the different religions. They allow you to explore a particular concept across religions to each other in order to understand that you have similar concepts across different religions, and that's specifically in application stage 2. And so to put that language back in. So that's the paragraph I've put together. The one thing which I noticed afterwards, which is that I don't see why we need to say ensuring that it's in red, ensuring that the religions outlined in the table are covered. I don't think you need to say that. Teachers know that they need to cover what's in the table, so I just thought that phrase could be taken out because it's unnecessary. So the proposal I want to make now is that this paragraph I've suggested be adopted, but taking out the phrase ensuring that the religions outlined in the table are covered, because it was an unnecessary addition. So that's what, yeah. And then there's just the list, updating the lists to reflect the decision to make Judaism and Hindu Dharma, that you should cover them in year 5 or year 6, with the other non-Christian religions as and worldviews as optional. That's D4 and D5. Are there any questions or suggestions? Yeah.
I wanted to note that there's nothing we can actually do about this point, but based on the data that was mentioned in the last meeting about the religious makeup of Wokingham, I think it, and like I say, it's not possible to do this, but what would make sense is if we took Shearer's version of the table in section D and switched Buddhism and Hindu Dharma around, so that upper key stage 2 has Judaism and Buddhism as recommended, along with the whole bunch of others in the list.
Why?
Because Hindu Dharma and Islam are the third and fourth largest religions in the borough, behind Christianity and atheism, which I suppose is being substituted for humanism here.
So
I'm not saying we can do that because we don't have a key stage 3. We don't have any key stage 3 Hindu Dharma content, but it seems to me that would be a logical thing to do at some point in the future.
So is this enough for key stage 3?
Yeah, so I'm suggesting what it should look like for upper key stage 2 is Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, and then the whole bunch of, I haven't actually got in front of me the table.
And do Hindu Dharma in key stage 3?
And then in key stage 3 it should be Christianity, Hindu Dharma, humanism, Islam, school choice.
That's actually not a bad idea, but
that's what it should be, but they don't.
We need to return to Sikh, but Sikhi also needs to be the next.
Well, yeah, I don't know. There's a whole, but the thing is, when we did the numbers, Sikhi was like extremely low proportion of people. So I was just saying that in terms of like key stage 3 is the start of secondary school. That's the stuff you're going to remember the most likely. So if you're going to have your top 4 in key stage 3, it ought to be the 4 that are most represented in the borough. I just thought I'd raise that as a point for the minutes. So thank you.
Sarah, turn off mics if we're not talking. Sarah.
I was just going to say it's probably too late to do that now, so maybe that, or maybe ought to be a proposal to be looked at for the next one in whenever you start doing that. Okay. But maybe recommend that presumably there will be a census done prior to that, so in that case you could look at that to inform you in the drawing up of the syllabus or amending of the syllabus for next time as a recommendation. Yeah,
I think it's the main point I made, and I'll make it again, is that there needs to be a clear methodology to how this is put together, and certainly this version, there doesn't appear to be much of a methodology there. So if it, I mean, the most obvious way of doing it is to just look at the makeup of the borough, and to, I suppose, allocate it backwards. So you basically just say key stage 3, put your top 4 in there, key stage 2, stick in the other 2, and then kind of work backwards and fill it in that way. That's probably be how I would do it. But
there are statutory requirements and things you have to do with each of it. Equally, we don't know. Again, we can't speculate. The people who put this together, they may have looked at the Pan Berkshire because it was originally Pan Berkshire. Shahid.
Yeah, I think we need to. I wasn't part of the discussion last time, so this is obviously my apologies. I was away. At the moment, it gives you a choice, isn't it, between one or the other. So what are we saying that, based on the demographics as well, obviously, etc., as I said, I would prefer giving the choice rather than making it mandatory and leaving that to the teachers to decide based on the demographics, right? It doesn't make any sense if the demographics is one particular, large population, and they're being taught something which is probably, so I think we need to be careful, right? And also we need to have a look at how it's being done Pan Berkshire as well, and not going at a tangent ourselves. So I think that's another thing to bear in mind as well. I think this is as it is a Pan Berkshire, my understanding is.
The one on the left.
Yeah. Is that the one which is here at the moment, isn't it? Yeah, that's at the moment. So we're asking to change that, right? Which means we are going in a direction which other Berkshires are not. But don't forget, you know, our children actually come from other, I mean, if we are Wokingham, for example, our children could be coming from Reading, or Reading schools, actually children go from Wokingham. So it's difficult to actually even go on the demographic side of things, or how many people are living of different faith in one or the other. So I think we should follow what the PAN, rather than just going our own way. That's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. John?
Am I allowed to ask Group C a question? Is that a thing that happens? Or maybe it could be a question for Ian, perhaps. Would that be more... Okay. Just the last line in the in making these choices, schools should note that. I don't have any experience of teaching Key Stage 3, but I just wanted to ask someone that did whether that was remaining within our remit of setting the syllabus, or whether we were straying into sort of extra
Key Stage 3
jurisdiction.
Sorry to cut across you. I mean, I was going to wait to and sort of say our points, but again, as a Key Stage 3 teacher, that does fall outside of our remit, explaining what we should be, that line, but I don't know, you feel, Sarah, as a Key Stage 3 teacher?
As a Key Stage, as a subject leader, I mean, I look at what is going on, I look at who makes up my school population, and I take that into consideration when I design units to be taught. I don't need somebody to talk philosophically about that. That's not the remit of this. This is a syllabus. This is what I want you to teach. This is the topics I want you to think about covering. That's what I want from this as a subject lead. I don't need somebody telling me the philosophical echelons about it all going around. So that, I made the sort of line there about it as well.
Paragraph are you?
Sorry, Shi, can I just, because Shira's had a hand up for a while.
Just, Shahid, we discussed last time, now, there's a difference between require and recommend. So it's a matter of whether the syllabus is completely agnostic about whether Judaism and Hinduism are taught in Upper Key Stage 2, or makes a recommendation to the teachers to cover them, possibly alongside Islam and Sikhi as well, because you always, in fact, if you look at the syllabus, in fact, it's suggesting you could do topics in Judaism and in Islam and in Hinduism and Sikhi, because you've got the parallel questions. But that there's a recommendation so that schools know that if they are not teaching Judaism and Hinduism at all in Upper Key Stage 2, that's not recommended, but it's always, that's the difference between a recommendation and a requirement, because anyway, aside from Christianity in every single year, everything else in terms of choice of religion in the syllabus is recommendation. Nothing else is actually really a requirement, because schools, for example, if you've got a school and they've got a lot of kids who are Jain, they may say, you know what, we want to cover Jainism because that's not covered at all in the syllabus, and they would be free to do that, except they'd have to write their own content. The issue is that for teachers to be given the recommendation because of the fact that Judaism and Hinduism otherwise might not be covered for children at all above the age of, say, 6, that they would end up with basically no sort of mature engagement with that. They wouldn't necessarily remember much, because you need to have a spiral of learning. So whereas Islam is covered in depth in Key Stage 3, so that covering Islam along with Judaism in Upper Key Stage 2, certainly there's no risk that children won't have learned about Islam because they're covering it in depth in Key Stage 3. But there are major social problems that can happen from children being ignorant of major faiths, which they may then encounter in their adult lives if they may believe all sorts of nonsense. A lot of people believe all sorts of nonsense about Hindus. That it's really important that they have that basic knowledge and understanding of all the major faiths in Britain, so that they're equipped for adult life. But it's a recommendation, it's not a requirement, which is why the original syllabus had been a bit too fudged, because it had said recommends Christianity and then recommend. So that's why I've actually clarified the language. The syllabus requires Christianity, the syllabus recommends Judaism and Hindu Dharma, to make the clear distinction between a recommendation and a requirement. Yeah.
I mean, if the decision is going to be up to the teachers on the day, they need to see probably the demographics of the schools and then make a decision based on that to some extent. And I do get Shira's point as well, that other legions should be taught so they're aware and knowledge and have that knowledge and understanding as well. But if it's a recommendation, will that recommendation have any significant, make any significant difference in the decision making of the teachers? There's a question mark. I just want to understand, because as professionals, probably you can guide, right? Or is it just recommendation for the sake of it, but actually it's not going to make a difference?
If you look at the statement underneath the actual grid, okay, there recommendations under the grids, under here, page 9 or page 8, whichever. And to be quite honest, that is what most schools, probably primary schools as well, would look at first. Okay, a recommendation, all things are considered when it comes to recommendation. How much time do you have? How many teachers do you have? That will be all taken into consideration. That's the reality on the ground. So you can put as many things in there as recommended as you like, but the reality is that people will sit down and work out, how much time do I have on curriculum time to deal with this? What are the students in front of me? What must I cover first? And the recommendations, if those are the ones that will stand out rather than the long comment there sort of thing, going off and off on a tangent. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Stephen?
Yeah, and what Ofsted will be looking for is curriculum design. So they'll be looking for you as a subject leader to be able to say, this is my curriculum, this is my reason behind it, and this is why I picked it, and be able to justify that in an inspection. And also crudely, I'm not talking about Wokingham, but I'm quite privileged. I travel around the country and see other schools. Some departments will pick their Key Stage 3 subjects to suit their GCSE. Nationally, Christianity is taught at GCSE, and Islam is sort of big subjects, so many subjects will have, not saying Wokingham, but other schools I've been in will have a big focus on Christianity and Islam at Key Stage 3.
Option choices.
Yeah, and option choices as well. I agree with what Sarah was saying in terms of like the recommendation. We can put as much as we want in there, and it's probably the same for our primary colleagues. It will all come down to the time and what the teachers have. Alex?
Yeah, so just to kind of put the question really bluntly then, is the change that Shira's put up there on the board, is that actually going to make any difference to what religions teachers actually choose to teach?
In secondary, no. There's no change there. In Key Stage 3 for Key Stage 2, 1?
Look at that bit underneath the coloured thing.
Grid.
And the only place where you've got any choices is upper Key Stage 2. And I would look at what had been taught prior to that, and then make my choices from those: Islam or Judaism, Hindu or Buddhism, and I would look at what was coming in Key Stage 3. I don't know that the paragraph would make any difference to me.
Sorry, I'm not talking about the paragraph, because to be honest, I'm kind of with Sarah. I think the paragraph doesn't really add anything that isn't already mentioned in the small box underneath the grid. If I'm completely honest, I just don't think there's a whole lot of text there, and I don't think most of that is necessary.
This paragraph was in the syllabus to begin with. It's just been modified.
Fine.
This has not been added.
I don't know.
This is just revising paragraphs already in the syllabus to make them consistent with the change.
I'm happy to vote either way on that. I really don't mind. The specific question I'm asking is the change to the table. Would that change your behaviour in terms of what religions you choose? So in other words, the fact that Judaism is sectioned out on its own now, rather than bunched in next to Islam, and the fact that Hindu Dharma is now by itself rather than next to Sikh and Buddhism, do you think that would likely change the outcome in terms of what you teach?
to be honest, I'm getting a bit lost in the conversation, but with this in front of me, in my school, if I was thinking what I would teach, I would look across here, and in the upper Key Stage 2, I would see that Islam is taught in lower Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3, so I would teach Judaism in upper Key Stage 2 because it'll have some depth to it there, because it's only been touched in Key Stage 1 first. And then of the Hindu, Sikh and Buddhism, it would depend, but probably Hindu Dharma, because there's not a lot of that been taught before. That's the decisions I would make from that box for my school, knowing what children I've got in it.
I think for me, crudely, no, it wouldn't. At Key Stage 3, I worked as a national advisor who basically said to me as head of department a number of years ago, you pick as head of department, just plan your curriculum appropriately and mirror the needs of your school and your community. And I had somebody come in and they were perfectly happy with the curriculum that I had planned. Sam?
So just to add to that, really, I'm looking as a RE coordinator to go, what do I have the resources for? I'm only a junior school as well, so I'm trying to be covering a little bit of everything. Don't forget, after that, I've got a whole load of questions I can choose from. So even if I say I'm taking Judaism, I've got, you know, or Hindu Dharma, I've got like 8 questions I can choose from that again. So, I mean, there's a huge amount of choice here and a huge amount of content, and it actually takes a lot of expertise and skill to make a curriculum design, as you said, that suits your school. There's a huge amount in there. So would it impact me? Not hugely, because I'm still going to have to pick out of that suits my children best and my teachers best in the very small time I have to teach RE, because I can't possibly answer most of the stuff that's in the syllabus.
You mentioned 2 things, and I just want to pick up on that, which I think makes probably explain the rationale why you're making the decision you do. Number one is that make the needs of the school, right? So that's going to be different for each school, right? So it's not going to be, so it's difficult to define a uniformity here, because one school might be different than the other and then the other as well. So I think that's why, end of the day, it doesn't matter what goes on here, decision will be made by the teachers on the ground, right? So whether it is here or not, the way I read it, it's not going to make that much difference, because end of the day you will decide based on the needs and demographic, whatever, you know, of the school as well, and the time as well. So I think that's what I'm saying, is we can put it here, but again, this goes back to the contents as well. What are we here for? What is supposed? This document is a contents document, right? Whether what will be taught. If, for example, any of the religion is being picked, what will be taught? What are the contents? So that's what it is. But whether that particular religion is being taught, this is a guideline, I suppose, but that will be decided by the teachers on the ground based on the needs of the school. That's my understanding, right? Which I think is a right approach. Secondly, you also said based on the GCSEs as well. You know, I think that is I always look at things start from the end, right? The end is what is going to be in the syllabus of that GCSE, right? And I can understand, right? This is in anything, right? I said begin with the end in mind, right? So this is begin and end in mind is what is going to be taught. So you're going to teach the stuff which is going to be in the exam. And setting the exam and the contents exam is not in our domain, right? So that's going to be done by outside bodies. So you're going to be led. Whatever is going to be put here in the Key Stage 3, right? You're going to decide, okay, it's more likely X, Y, Z. We need to go actually be aligned with that. And also based on the people who so that's another factor from your point of view. So the summary I'm saying is both of these points, which makes me think, right, doesn't matter what goes on here, actually you guys going to decide on the ground, which I think is the right approach.
Just coming back to Shahid, what you're saying, in another one of my roles where I will go into schools and inspect them, one of the key questions I will ask, and I've done more primary now than secondary, is talk me through your curriculum and tell me the decisions you've made about what is taught and when. Because that's actually what we want to know, because the reflection that's coming from DFE at the moment around the curriculum assessment review, and I met with them last week, is that children need to see themselves reflected in the curriculum. And that's going to be a big issue around, and Emily and I have spoken about this when we met last week. That came directly from members of the curriculum assessment review that the DFE have set up. So the idea is I would sit with a coordinator or a head of department and say, talk me through your curriculum. One of the things is, and we do know in primary particularly, we buy a lot of off-the-shelf examples. And one of the questions we will ask now is, how have you made that relevant to your school? So it is very much about the school-led element there. And I'll speak as being a teacher, in different, in my school, then we did teach in Key Stage 3 all 6 world religions, but we had a focus mainly on Christianity for 50% of the time across years 7, 8 and 9. Then we had one Islam unit in every year because Islam was our GCSE progressive study, but then we would have Hindu Dharma because it was a large Hindu population, and then there would be a unit of Buddhism, Sikhi and Judaism within each year, in a year group as well, because that reflected the makeup of my school. However, towards the lower end of my local authority, it was a predominantly Jewish area, so they would replace Islam in 7, 8 and 9 with Judaism, and the primary schools did exactly the same. But it reflected the children's learning and them seeing themselves in the curriculum, because that's part of that, fundamental part of belonging, and belonging is a huge word going forward in the new curriculum. We hear belonging from every member. Becky Francis said it last week in a meeting, Vanessa Ogden said it. That's 3 members of 10 are talking about that really loudly. So, say schools will look at this and go, right, I know there's an expectation of what I will teach, and then they will choose from the content what they want to teach, and that's what we're saying here. Here is the content we'd like you to teach, but you are then free to choose that yourself. And part of what Stephen says with curriculum design, and we do know, and we spoke about today, and Beth and I spoke about today, there is a discussion with a union around the new Ofsted framework, but if it goes forward as it stands, one of the key areas will be curriculum design. How have you designed this curriculum to meet the needs of your children? And that will be different from different schools, even in the same local borough. I'll be the same across, the country. But one of the key elements is it's ensuring, therefore, that it does reflect the needs of the children. And so actually, as I say, the legal requirement is it's a predominantly Christian one. And then as an ASC, you are pointing people to what you recommend is in that year group, but the ultimate say will be curriculum design. And John mentioned it is a responsibility of the school, not of the local authority. And I mentioned earlier about the other national curriculum subjects. For example, it says, for example, you might do the ancient Romans in a certain key stage, but that you're free to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I might want to do the medieval church. I might want to do the history of Islam. It's entirely up to school what they choose to teach. And as long as it meets the intent statement, this goes back to what Alex was saying before, at the beginning of the syllabus, as long as it meets the intent of what RE is, which is included, that would be what's included. So schools will choose from this document what they wish to.
I think, Ian, we agree on that, right? Needs of the children, right? That's what we're talking about. This proposal here, the change we're talking about, is that again just for us, I take it? Or is it pan Berkshire?
No, so Shahid, because we've made changes to the document, we're now going alone. So it's now a Wokingham specific syllabus. Although there's a lot of crossovers between sort of like Berkshire.
This grid, I'm talking about this grid.
So this grid, so it would be, just Wokingham.
Just to fill you in, so the only council that has actually agreed and adopted the syllabus the way it was is Slough. Everywhere else, things are on hold, and pretty much the other councils are waiting to see what we produce, and then they will look at what we produce, and they may or may not decide to. We've done a lot of work. Our syllabus is a lot better than it was, and they'd be kind of crazy if they didn't make use of all the effort we've just gone to. My husband is on 2 of the SACRAs. I'm hopefully on Bracknell, if they can get around to actually appointing a Jewish person on Bracknell. Long story. I've got good links with Maidenhead, so there's a lot of links happening in the background between the different SACRAs. What I'm hoping is that we'll produce a really good revision to the syllabus, which then the other council will be like, oh, thank you, Wokingham, for doing all the hard work. We'll accept what you've done with maybe some minor adjustments.
Shira, is there anything else you'd like to say around D4 and D5?
It's a matter of just reordering the tables to, so not putting the recommended ones before the options, but because of the parallelism in the key questions, and because of the suggestion in the syllabus that Judaism and Islam could be covered in parallel, and Hinduism and Sikh could be covered in parallel. So you do Judaism and Islam sequentially, and then Hindu and Sikh sequentially, and then Buddhism, no, just worldviews at the bottom, so that you're keeping that, to keep the curriculum, because the curriculum design was to cover topics with the Abrahamic and the Dharmic faiths, possibly in parallel, if you were going to cover both Judaism and Islam, or both Hinduism and Sikh. So that's the order. So everything in the table is just sort of reordered to fit those recommendations, which are recommendations, not requirements.
What I would say is you can put them in any order at all that you wish, but as a subject lead, I will sit down and I will accordingly work out my syllabus that I'm going to teach in whichever order I so desire.
Yeah. It's less confusing.
I'm not saying it's not confusing, but I'm just saying, you know, that I sit down and you can write whichever one alphabetically, number of believers in the world or whatever. You can have whatever reason you want for the order that they are. I'll do it according to what I want to do.
Yeah, it's just about laying things out to be simple and easy to understand and less.
I'm not saying it's not, but I'm just saying that won't be taken into consideration when I draw up my syllabus.
That's what I was, talking about earlier on. I spoke to a couple of other teachers as well. They said, look,
that's the reality of the situation.
What Ian said, we reflect what is on the ground, needs of the schools are, needs of the children are. Based on that, we will actually, put something around syllabus and teach them, whatever it is be, so yeah.
And I think you can't say to people you've got to teach it in this order. You've got to allow them that flexibility to be able to put it in an appropriate order.
And before we go into votes within a second, Alex, are there any other questions or comments around any of those changes and amendments? I do have one, Alex, though. I'm chairing, don't worry, we'll get to the vote. Yep, don't worry. Sam.
Can I just ask why some called core and some optional when we were saying recommended and required before? Have I missed something?
Where are you looking?
That says D5, point, the last bit, non-statutory against the heading. You called some core and some optional. Have I missed that?
I think that's going with the change to the it's aligning with the change to this table.
Okay.
Sam.
But we haven't used the words core or optional anywhere else, have we? Or have we? I probably misunderstood it, but I'm not sure where the language has changed from requirement and recommended.
I think you're right, and it should say Christianity required instead of core for D5 to make. That was an oversight in the original syllabus, not to make that distinction. So yes. Core change to required under D5 for Christianity.
And then is optional then recommended? Or is it still called optional? And non-religious worldviews hasn't got a title. Is that?
So wouldn't it say Judaism recommended?
So Christianity core, Judaism recommended, Islam optional, Hindu Dharma recommended, Sikh optional, yes. To keep the consistency of language all the way through so it's not confusing.
And then just, I mean, and again, I don't know, sort of my colleagues are on another conversation, but John, sort of you mentioned that last comment in that paragraph, in the making of these choices, schools should know that Buddhism and so on and so forth, key stage 3. Again, I think that blurs the boundaries between a syllabus and telling teachers how to do their job.
Sorry, what are you talking about?
Page 9, the last statement.
Right. The last statement on page 9?
Yes. In the paragraph, in making these choices.
Yeah. Oh, that was in the original syllabus. The original syllabus said that in making the choice what to cover in key stage 2, upper key stage 2, that they should note what's covered in key stage 3. That was that reminded to teachers to note what's covered in key stage 3 was in the original syllabus. All I've done here is just reworded what was in the original syllabus, adapting it. Yeah, there's there's the only thing that I added in, which I've sort of said, okay, fine, leave it out, was for the previous, the other paragraph was, the teachers should also note using wisdom, which I've agreed, okay, cut that sentence out, because I don't want to have an argument.
Okay, seeing as we're making changes then, I mean, I suggest
Yeah,
everyone, that last sentence doesn't fit in a syllabus. Page 9, that last sentence.
Do you not think that teachers, in choosing what to cover in Upper Key Stage 2, should consider what's going to be covered in Key Stage 3? I mean, the original drafters of our original syllabus thought teachers should consider what's covered in Key Stage 3 when they decide what to cover in Upper Key Stage 2, and I think that they were right.
I will probably have about 20 feeder schools coming to me when I'm sort of making a decision about what I'm going to teach at Key Stage 2, and equally, primary schools are going to be feeding into various different secondary schools as well.
I've got 34.
You win. John?
I think the point that I was going to make has been sort of covered anyway, and is not really relevant. But as well as the sentence at the end of page 9, I didn't want to forget about the sentence at the end of page 7 as well, which I think has the same, to my mind, is overstepping our remit.
I think Shira said she would take that out. Yep.
Sorry.
I'm simply following what Angela and Anne and David had already, put into the original draft of the syllabus. They thought teachers should consider, when they're making their choices, looking at what's covered in Key Stage 3, keeping that in mind, and just sort of flesh that out a bit more, but pretty much just doing the same thing that they already were. If you think that sentence should be cut,
To be quite
I'm not going to
honest,
make a fuss about
And I'm not making a fuss about it. I'm just saying, to be quite honest, you look at the table. That's what you do. That's what I've got. That's what I'm not reading that. I'm looking at the table. That's much clearer.
All
It's
I've done
straightforward.
here was taking paragraphs from the syllabus, realizing if you change the table and you leave the paragraphs the same, then the text of the syllabus, because it's going to contradict what's in the table, you just got to make sure the text is consistent with the table, so the teachers don't, they're like, hold a minute, what? That's all really I'm trying to do here, is to make sure that the text matches the table so that it isn't a complete muddle.
My view is just take the text out. It's irrelevant. It's repeated. I'm not going to read it. I'm looking at the table.
Shahid?
Just a point of clarification. D5, 541, is that, are we talking about Key Stage 2, but is that Upper Key Stage 2 we're talking about? Yeah?
Yes, Upper Key Stage 2. Upper Key Stage 2. And Lower Key Stage 2 is required, or recommended, whatever. Everything is recommended.
Right, okay.
Okay, I think if we go into our groups and have a conversation, then we'll come back together on those amendments.
Just right.
Okay, so thank you everyone. I think the groups are good. Just for a point of reference as well, at the previous meeting, Group A did vote for the changes in proposed in Section D. You've obviously had a bit of a conversation, so I think if we take them all bit by bit, so Group A, did you approve the change to the table?
Yes.
Thank you. Group B?
Yes.
Group C?
Yes.
Group D? Beth, behave yourself. Can we turn that mic off, please? John, do you want to turn your mic off?
Yes, I approve, yeah,
Thank
of the
you.
table, yeah.
Group A, so the paragraph, so we're at D.1. The paragraph, did you...
Shall I just summarise again?
So the paragraph, and then I think, Shira, you said with that last sentence taken out. So Group A, with that last sentence taken out, do you approve that paragraph?
And beginning with the sentence from the original syllabus, questions may be combined to create longer units and enable students to go deeper. There is no expectation, ... The bit in blue at the bottom, with the bit in blue at the bottom.
Yes.
Thank you. Group B?
Yes.
Group C?
Yes.
Yes.
D?
Yes.
Four 4.2.4, so again with that second paragraph, page 9, Group A.
Putting the bit in blue.
That's without the last sentence. Yes.
Without the last sentence, yes.
Without the last sentence, yes.
Group D.
Page 9. Page 9. Yeah, I'll vote for that, yeah.
Yep. Agreed. Group A, 4.2.4, changing the text and the order.
We do 0.4 and 0.5 together.
Pushing your luck, Alex.
D5 is slightly changed because we decided to put required and recommended and optional instead of the words core because that was confusing.
So Group A,
Yes.
B,
Yes.
Group
Just this one.
C, yeah.
Yes.
Group D. Yeah. Thank you. And finally, 5.4.1. This is where Shira said, with the slight change of words, so core, remind me, Shira, so I get it right.
Instead of Christianity required, Judaism recommended, Islam optional, Hindu Dharma recommended, Sikhi optional, Buddhism optional.
Those changes, Group A,
Yes.
Group B,
Yes.
Group C.
Yes.
But just as a point for the minutes, we did have a conversation as professionals and as teachers feeling a little bit caged by those terms. And actually the syllabus should be supportive as opposed to caging people. Group D.
Yes.
Thank you. Section E.
It's just the last point you made. You feel you're being caged, right? So, I mean, these are recommendations. Does that mean you do you have to follow them?
You still don't have to.
Still,
but I just
obviously, your
think-
decision is going to be, as Sarah is going to say.
It's just the point. It's just the terminology. It's just, it's the terminology. I wouldn't want like an inexperienced person to pick it up and think, oh, actually, I'm not sure what to do.
Can I
with
slip
that.
out for 2 minutes before we go on to the next section? I need the toilet.
Yeah, of course. So if we have a quick 2-3 minute comfort break. Okay, everyone, thank you. So, section E. So this is, we didn't discuss this the last day, so Shira.
Right, so the original draft of the syllabus was calling religions religious worldviews, which I objected to. All the Jewish and Hindu reps in Berkshire objected to it because Judaism is not a worldview. It's a religion, it's a religious civilization. There's a lot more to Judaism than points of view. What unites Jews with each other is not that we share worldviews. Worldviews cut across religions. It's much more complicated than viewing religions as a sort of subcategory of worldviews. This is a deep philosophical issue, but it's more than that, because you've got this whole religion and worldviews framework that's being sort of recommended by certain people, and the syllabus was designed to fit within that. And they were avoiding the word religion pretty much throughout the original draft of the syllabus, and calling all the religions religious worldviews, which we objected to. What they ended up, there's some pictures and infographics there to help you understand, which I'm not necessarily going to refer to unless I have to. What they did in response to our complaints was they stuck the word religions into the syllabus along with this phrase religious and non-religious worldviews as a sort of kind of fix. But the result of that was honestly to create inconsistency and confusion. And in some cases, sentences that don't even work grammatically. And so what I'm suggesting is that we consistently go through the syllabus, and I've found every place where it's necessary to do that, and make sure that we're talking about religions and worldviews. Because the phrase religions and worldviews includes religious worldviews, includes individual worldviews, includes shared worldviews, includes non-religious worldviews. The phrase religion includes those religions that might be understood to be religious worldviews if you want to view your religion that way, which is your right if you want to, although I do not do that for Judaism. And so it's inclusive, it's broad, and it's also not clunky and awkward, and it's just simple and clear, and means that we're not assuming that anyone's religion is a worldview, which is an assumption. And also, if you are treating the subject of RE as a study of worldviews, what you end up doing is creating a bias against those religions that aren't best understood to be worldviews, because then there are the religions that are the real worldviews and the religions that aren't worldviews, and then we kind of become second-class religions, which is no good. So I've found every place where that needs to be done, and I've outlined them. And you have red highlight? Oh, you do. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah, and a couple of places there were some typos in what I sent to begin with, which I fixed, and that's where the little line is. So under 2.3, it should say RE is not simply about gaining knowledge and understanding about religions and worldviews, as opposed to understanding about religions, religious and non-religious worldviews. Under 2.3, the 2025 syllabus is more, should say 2026, shouldn't it?
There's a lot of places where it...
2026, I think that's in G anyway. I think I put that in G anyway. 2026 syllabus, let's fix that right now, is more specific. Can we just add that 2026 to that? About the required study of religions and worldviews in each key stage. 4.2.5, right, the remaining questions covering Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and humanism, as well as some thematic philosophical questions in which the syllabus recommends, should be approached from a variety of religious and non-religious perspectives, including those found in Christianity and the other religions and worldviews included in the syllabus. The original text there makes no sense because it's treating Christianity as a religious worldview perspective. Christianity is not a religious worldview perspective. Christianity is a religion. Contained within Christianity, you will find beliefs, perspectives. So, Then 4.2.6, there's this table with Key Stage 4, core features of religions, not core features of religious worldviews, because not all religions can be understood to be worldviews. Religions includes religious worldviews. So just say religions, keep it simple. Then there's the lessons for, I think this is with the Year 7 non-statutory content, the beginning lessons for Year 7, which need to be revised, but for the moment, just fix the language for now. What is the difference between a religion and a non-religious worldview? Here, this is an exercise which is specifically about looking at the difference between religions and non-religious worldviews. So that's what this exercise is actually about. So a comparative exploration of a religion and a non-religious worldview. And here, at similarities and differences between religions and non-religious worldviews. And then to explore the ways in which religious beliefs are often supported by sources of authority, not the ways in which religious worldviews. Why say worldviews? You're talking about beliefs. And then lesson 4, what is the societal impact of religions as opposed to religious worldviews? So that's just all the instances of this fudgy language to fix it, to be clear that that this is a religion and worldviews syllabus, and we are not trying to imply that religions are a subcategory of worldviews, because that is something which many people find deeply offensive.
Sarah?
I just wondered if Ian might like to comment on the language that was used for drawing up of the syllabus, whether or not the terminology, was there a factor for it or anything, particular reason for using religious or non-religious worldviews, or the terminology there, and if we altered it to the suggestions, does it have the same impact?
As I mentioned, the Religion and Worldviews project came out of the Commission on RE that Charles Clarke set up in 2018, which was to provide a structure for a new view of RE. So, for example, the 1944 Act, even though it calls it RE, was very much still around religious instruction, which is why we have the right of withdrawal. As I said at the last meeting, when we get into the 70s, it becomes religious studies, and we're literally seeing religion as something external to people, and you learn fact. Religious education was about children talking about their own responses and their own opinions and developing that ability to do that one. Some people within the RE world, and it is not everybody, would say that actually that, they've looked at putting forward what's called the religion and religions worldviews paradigm or view, in the fact that it's framing RE as not something that's alien to people, but is part of their lived experience. However, some people do not agree with that one. So, for example, certain other religious studies groups would not agree with the religion and worldviews approach. So it's put there as a discussion, as a way that RE may wish to go into the future. There is no set pedagogy around how RE is to be taught. So, and I'm hearing exactly what Sheila says, and I have friends who work at the Board of Deputies, one of whom is one of the senior members of the Board of Deputies and was on my SACRE, who will say to me, Judaism is not a worldview. And we were very much aware of that fact, and we reflected that in the language that we used. So the idea is, and the Hindu community do not say that the Hindu Dharma is a worldview. So not all religions are accepting of that one. However, if we're talking about religions and worldviews, the idea is within, say for example, the non-religious worldview, there are a panoply of ideas around spiritual, not religious, atheist, sentientist, all those areas. So the idea is that some people will recognise worldviews, some will not. So actually teachers will still teach religion in the way of the content is there. They will choose the pedagogy they choose to use. Now, religion and worldviews is very, very new. The handbook only came out in 2024, and some syllabus conferences have said we are going fully down a religious worldviews approach, and they have done that one.
What they're trying to do in Berkshire.
And that's been put forward, and that is now part of their agree syllabus. Other agree syllabus have said, no, we will allow our teachers to decide how they teach this one. But actually, the guidance is around there that, and I will use this. One local authority I'm working with, we have altered the language on the recommendation of the Board of Deputies to do that, to make it inclusive, because there is a large Jewish population in this area. So that they have chosen as an ASC to do that on the recommendation of their Jewish rep on that sacrament, because that, as I say, it's not accepted by all faith groups.
Yeah, I'm keen that the religion or religions is right for the faith groups, but I'm very keen that the worldviews is in there, because having taught in a lesson, you can start teaching about religion, they say, well, I'm not religious, I'm not going to engage. Whereas you can say to them, but you've got a worldview, what is it, how does it fit this topic? So for me, the worldviews as a teacher means everyone has to engage. You can't sit on the side and say it doesn't matter to me. But it also matters to me that the first bit is not offensive to anyone and is appropriately written.
I think the changes there do actually account for that one, because we talk about religions and worldview, so it's accepting that the children will comment on that one. So, and in fact, Alex, you mentioned this last time, but, I have a very specific worldview that if my children would say to me, sir, what do you think? I will share that with them, but I'll say, but that's my worldview, and that comes from a 53-year-old white-haired man who looks with a very white beard, who's quite old and decrepit, and you are 16-year-olds, but my view, and I will talk about, and if you look at the Oak Academy resources for Year 7, one of their units is R.M. Hare's Blick, that we all have a blick, exactly what we say, where we come from. I'm from the Midlands, I lived in rural Derbyshire for 19 years, that affected who I was, and I would use that with the children, say, your children are in Wokingham in 2025, it affects who they are. So you would include that one, but actually religions would not be offensive in that sense to any of the religious groups, and then worldviews would cover those religions who would accept that they are part of a worldviews paradigm.
I personally don't necessarily have any concerns with sort of the amendments made here. I think my only sort of, I don't know if it's word of caution, and I wasn't being rude, I was just putting up one of the exam specs. I teach AQA and I've taught EDUCAS, and the questions they ask children at GCSE explain 2 religious beliefs about the role of parents in a religious family. There is a lot of reference to religious within there, within sort of the exam spec. I'm not saying we write this the exam spec, but just something for us to be mindful of.
Sorry, I know Shahid had his hand up before, but just to respond directly to what you just said, the example you gave there is religious beliefs. Calling them religions and worldviews doesn't negate the fact that there are also religious beliefs. So yeah.
I think I just want to echo what Sheila support the comments she's made. I do believe that it will make a clear different distinction between religion and worldviews. By enclosing everything, it actually confuses, especially the faith groups, right, in a sense. And I think this brings about clarity, and I will support the views, the recommendation made by Sheila on that.
Are there any other questions before we go to votes on this amendment? No, so we're going to our groups. Oh, okay. Thank you everyone for your, I don't know what the word is, it's late. For whatever, thank you for you, whatever. Group A, do you accept the changes that have been proposed to section
Yes.
E? Thank you. Group B?
Yes.
Thank you. Group C?
Yes.
Group D?
Yep.
Okay, amazing. So,
Can
we're
I-
not there yet.
Suggestion, next time, I think there's a lesson here, right?
Can we just, sorry, Shahid, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to, can we just finish the formality of the agreed syllabus conference so we can do it? F is flagged work for the future. That's not for the agreed syllabus conference to agree. Equally, G is for when the local authority is G. Oh, sorry, G, yes, G. F is for future. So G, the syllabus gives an end date of 2031.
Or that 2025 to 2026 that we saw before as well.
I could be wrong, and I'll defer to our advisors in a second, and Emily, but I think it does have to have a date, not expiry date, but a date that the syllabus runs from. Is that correct?
Does it have to have an end date?
It does, yeah. 1996 Education Act, sorry to quote from this one, no such conference can be convened late in the end of the period of 5 years, beginning with the date on which the authority adopted the agreed syllabus. So it is by law a 5-year syllabus. Now what then becomes, and this will go with other discussions, is you can then choose within that time when you wish to review the syllabus again, but there is within statute, as I say, a requirement that it is a 5-year syllabus. That's in the Education Act.
The requirement, and I've looked into this, is that within 5 years you should start a review. That review could then take several years. So therefore, the syllabus, putting an end date on the syllabus creates confusion, because then you think that while that syllabus review is taking place, oh, but the syllabus was until 2031. So that does, the fact that you need to start a review within 5 years does not mean the syllabus has an end date. It just means that you need to review it. I think we need to start to do some review relatively soon to deal with the lack of CKI in Key Stage 3. So I mean, you can do minor reviews. You could do minor changes to a syllabus whenever you want, and we might do that, but there doesn't need to be an end date just because we need to start reviewing it within 5 years.
I think in the here and the now, I think let's just get this syllabus over the line, and then that's for future, all of you, not me, because I won't be here to make that decision. If you pull together an agreed syllabus conference and make those sort of, yeah.
I was just going to say, before you agree to review what we're proposing to go through, we have to decide by which date it has to be implemented, the timescale and things like that. So put it in context. Okay, I haven't started teaching the blasted thing, let alone anything else. Don't tell me when I've got to review it.
I think we need to have some dates, because it's from the implementation point of view as well. You need to plan ahead, schools need to plan ahead as well. Yeah, as a start date, but also it's forward planning as well, you know, in terms of resources, etc. But I think it is in the legislation. So if there is in the legislation, what option do we have as a secretary to change that, right, the end date? The question mark, right? That's going in my head. So are we following the legislation or are we not following the legislation? It's not what we can decide. If the legislation is that is something we need to give up. Unless if there's something I think we need to bear in mind.
So, as I've understood it, the legislation says you have to review it after 5 years, but there is no requirement to actually make any change to it, and we were allowed to roll our syllabus over. There is no actual reason, we don't need to make the change now. Although I think there is I'm in two minds about this, because one, I don't want to imply that we definitely need to finish it there, but on the other hand, I just don't want to lose the collective memory of the process we have gone through this time. I think pain is a useful training tool. Educationalists will probably disagree with me, but I think it's useful to Ashir is right, we don't want to end up thinking, or the people who were on the SACRE in 5 years' time thinking that they need to do something by this particular set date. And I know that corporate memory is terrible unless you put markers down.
In my experience, and I've been on SACRE for a number of years, this is my third syllabus review. I think you have enough wealth of experience here that I think people and the advisor and the LA know exactly sort of what the process is. I think it's just standard practice, I think, to have that the syllabus goes from, if we implement this in 26 to 31, and then in 2030, you will start thinking about those potential changes. Nigel, then Shearer.
I would just suggest that only allowing a year for consideration of changes is not enough. I mean, we've gone through actually quite a lot of pain here because we haven't allowed the process the time that it deserves.
I disagree with you because this process has actually taken about 18 months and actually a bit longer because it started way back when, well, that's inappropriate sort of, and we can have that conversation outside. Let's keep it professional. Shearer.
I have been told by more than one of the Judaism reps I've spoken to about the same thing happening where you are told we have to agree the syllabus today, otherwise we'll be in violation of our statutory duty, which is that we agree another syllabus because our older syllabus has expired. This myth of the expiry of the syllabus is a common one, and it is used to force through syllabuses. It has happened in numerous councils, and it is really important that people know that syllabuses don't expire as long as you're doing a review. The syllabus ticks on. So a start date you need, end date you don't need. The fact that end dates have, I know, been misused in SACREs, I know this because I have heard other people talking about it. This is not a unique thing that we've experienced where you are told the syllabus is going to expire at this date, and if you don't agree what we've told you, then God help you, you're going to fall off the edge of a cliff. This gets told to people often, and we need to make sure that in 5 years' time, people don't think that they're at the edge of a cliff when there is no cliff.
That never happened in Wokingham. We delayed our syllabus because of COVID, and we shared that with colleagues around the school. That's why we were delayed. We never told anyone that it's expiring. So I think I'm sorry that's happened in other SACREs. I don't believe that has happened within Wokingham. Sarah?
And I would also say we're talking about in 5 years to review it. Not that you've got to approve it, it's to review it. And you could always set up under the new chair, a proposal that maybe after 3 or 4 years that you get a working party that goes around and talks with schools, with subject leaders and starts talking, so you've got an idea about what any proposals, what things people on the grassroots floor have experienced that comes back to you and says that then. Doesn't mean to say you have to do, if there's not a lot there, you don't have to do it. It's a light touch. We've done that before, I know. Being a subject lead, I know there's been just light touches, just tweaks that have been done previously. So that could be done.
We don't need an end date, we really don't.
No, but by law you do. By which you have to review it. You have to have an end date for a review.
Could we not just say a date for review in line with legal requirements?
Yes.
The date for review is 2031.
2026 syllabus to be reviewed by 2031.
Do we need to go into groups to vote on that? Just so it's appropriate. Sorry, just the final thing as well before we go into groups. Just G2 bad link. Does that?
I was just going to say that's absolutely no problem. It's just correcting a link, but it's on page 51 and not page 48. I was just going to say.
Okay, so we just go into our groups. Okay, Group A. So changes G1. So yes, no. What do you?
Yes.
With It's going to be reviewed.
With 4 of you by
31.
31.
Okay, thank you. Group B?
Yes.
Group C?
Yes.
Group D?
Drum roll.
Anytime to
Yes.
Alex? Thank you. Okay. Still not there yet, Alex. We're still not there yet. We haven't finished
We're
yet.
not ready yet?
No,
Oh,
we've got
sorry,
to vote.
Sorry.
Okay, so the final thing before we talk about implementation and in terms of dates, and just for schools' benefits, we're saying potentially a year and a term to give them that opportunity to implement it. So hopefully it will go live winter term 26, ready for teaching, I guess, January 27. So it'll last for 5 years to be reviewed by 31. The final thing we need to do this evening is, as groups, we need to get into our groups and we need to vote. Do we adopt this syllabus that we've worked on for... yeah.
Forever.
So, so subject to all the amendments, does your group agree to adopt the syllabus? So if you want to go into your groups, then we'll come back together. Okay, that was really quick. That's probably the quickest one. Group A, subject to all the amendments and the changes, do you agree to adopt this as our Wokingham RE syllabus?
Yes.
Group B, subject, yep, thank you. Group C?
Yes.
And Group D?
Yes.
Amazing.
Time for the white smoke.
Yeah, where's the white smoke?
Okay, thank you, everyone. We have a syllabus. I think there's obviously some procedural things that the LA will need to do, because I assume we'll have to go to full council for their approval, and then Emily will sort of get it to graphic design, and they'll start doing all the other bits and bobs. What have I missed, Emily?
So just talking about implementation, I mean, Group C will be really well placed to advise on this, but what I would suggest is, obviously, as things stand, teachers were expecting to start implementing the new syllabus from September, which we could stick with, but we could give them a longer implementation time because we're later getting it to them. So rather than just having a year, as Stephen mentioned, we could give them a year plus a term, so that from January 27, the syllabus should be fully in place. Does that sound reasonable to groups?
Do you have any ideas with all the changes and all of that and going through the council, when will teachers be able to get, I mean, we've got a copy, but we're talking grassroots people, will they have it, say, before the summer holiday?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think we can share it. I think it will go to full council at the meeting in July, which would be a bit tight to get it by the end of term. However, we could share it as a sort of unofficially approved document. This is what the SACRE are recommending to the council. I think we could share it with schools in that format, Ian, if, you know, within the next couple of weeks, potentially.
Julie, then sure.
With a primary school hat on, if they're not getting the actual proper one until July, you're expecting them to work in the holiday, which is not directed time.
No.
That would be the implication, which is not directed time, so they would have to, although most will probably anyway. So I think the extra term would be good, because the autumn term won't be properly, if we say it's got to be autumn, it'll be rushed. If we say it's by January 27, definitely in place, a lot will change it for autumn term anyway. But I just feel if it comes out in July and it has to be implemented from September, it might be rushed. If I was an RE teacher, I'd feel that you were telling me I had to do it in the summer holiday.
How soon do you think that this document, because we've got the sort of various revisions that we agreed tonight, how would that document be prepared? Because I really want certainly to share that with Bracknell, and my husband wants to share it with Reading and West Bogs, because they've all been waiting for we are the leaders. So how soon will that document be available so we can share it with the other local authorities?
Well, it'll have to be done quite soon because in order to go to full council in July, there's various other committees that it needs to go through first, and I'll need to have it ready to get to those. So I'm going to have to do it in the next few weeks, I would say. So, yeah.
Because I don't know when the other meetings are of other SACREs, so the sooner that document is available, the better, because again, my hope all the way through this was that we would do the work and then hopefully bring the others with us. And it'd be nice if we can bring that to them before they have their next meetings, which will be coming up in the next, I
was going to say, maybe if that was the case, if there are people who are interested in our document, we can sell it and make money for implementation, for teachers.
We could
training.
get free parking for you lot.
Yeah.
Sell it and get some free parking. Would you like free parking for the Sacre? Well, if we sell our syllabus, we could get a little kitty together and have free parking for the Sacre.
Okay, so final couple of things then before we finish up. So that's our agreed conference done. So we look forward to getting the final syllabus. Our next meeting is 2 seconds. I'll be in a second. Our next meeting is the 9th. That's currently penciled in as online, but Emily has suggested we move it to an in-person meeting here, just because it's quite nice and it's the summer.
Stephen's last meeting.
Yeah, but I would have rather done it online, but no. Then I could have just.
So you coming or doing it online?
I'm not going to be there. Beth, you can share. Yeah, so we're moving our meeting in person. Sorry, is here available?
Yeah, I have actually provisionally booked here already. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Alex Stenchi.
Yeah, question for Emily. Who will actually be presenting the report to full council?
That's to be discussed, I think.
It's likely to be Prue Gray as the executive member.
But I will probably meet with Prue before then.
Okay, so I don't need to fill her in on anything.
Is executive member not
I think probably not, but I'll let you know.
All right.
Alex,
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
It's actually just a comment. I think I just want to commend the SACRE members because obviously last couple of weeks and months has been quite challenging actually to put this together, to come to agreement. So I think it's a great news that we have. There's been a lot of challenges on the way, probably some very harsh words being said to each other as well. I mean, I'm just saying the fact that everybody was tolerant, was understanding, compromised, and we actually come to the end and agreed something. I think that actually is a great strength. It represents the strength of the group as well. So I just want to commend to everyone and well done, I think, for doing that. Because we know there was quite tough times and difficult challenges, but despite that, we actually came to the end. So well done, Steve, for managing it, obviously chairing it. It hasn't been very easy for you sometime as well. So I appreciate, as an observer, appreciate that as well. I've seen that online, I've seen it here as well. So thank you for doing that.
Well, thank you for your kind words, and I just echo what you're saying just about everyone and everyone's input. And it has been tough at times, and it has been bruising, but we've got a syllabus. So, yeah, enjoy the rest of your Monday evening.
A lot of money for me.
Yeah, enjoy. Thank you, everyone, and I'll see you all in June. Take care.
And thanks to our
and also,
council
if anybody
officers.
does want to be chair, wants to have a chat with Beth, Emily, myself, we're happy to set up an online meeting. Please do come forward. And thank you, Lucy Anning, for doing the minutes.